Hey everyone, welcome to the Sanctuary Dev Chat. Today I'm here with FoneE, our systems developer working on Dots.
Hello, people of the internet. I am FoneE, your Dots developer.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what your role is on Sanctuary and what Dots means and all that.
So, firstly, what Dots means is the data-oriented technology stack. So, a lot of fluff for basically saying that it's a different way to go about programming, um, really in a lower level. So, um, if you are a programmer, you probably have been drilled on the idea of object-oriented programming. Well, this is kind of the reverse. So it's more data-oriented, which allows us to really push performance over than kind of you have to juggle some things. So performance over probably simplicity,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you can say. Obviously, what do I do? What is my role? So because I'm a systems developer, I'm pretty much on the back end majority of the time developing the systems that are, in the fundamental backs of the kind of program. So that a good example would be physics, um, and not physics as in like rigid body collisions or anything like that, but more of collision detection, really nailing collision detection, things to do with shields, raycasting AoE damage, um, as well as targeting. Um, so that's my main kind of, I guess, portfolio here is that I work on the back end. So yeah,
What sort of things have you been working on within Sanctuary specifically?
I've worked on physics and so, we have the idea of systems, right? And, as much as, systems are a very broad term, like the physics system, there's many components to physics. So one of them being unit collisions. So when two units overlap, and they hit each other. Another thing would be projectiles, right? When projectiles explode or hit something. That's a component of that. And as much as, these are pretty fundamental things, there's a lot that goes into them. Especially when you're a systems developer over really a gameplay developer, someone who really is more focused on gameplay over the systems because my systems have to be robust and they have to work well and
Mm-hmm.
quickly because they're in the back end of the game. They also have to uh, be clean because when you're in the lowest level part of the game, programming wise, and things build off it, you quickly notice that if your systems aren't clean, anything that builds off them becomes a
Mm-hmm.
mess, and this slows development time, everything like that. If anyone knows who Uncle Bob is, give yourself a pat on the back.
What features are you most excited to be working on specifically, regarding Sanctuary?
So, as much as I'm a system developer, I'm also a Dots developer, and I love Dots for many reasons, but it's mostly because it allows me to be a system developer. You know, there's a lot to goes into being a system developer. Like, even though you're a system developer, you're not necessarily developing systems per se, but components, like full out components and things. I am actually developing systems. So I have a system that runs and executes these things. Um, and that's the Dots workflow. You have these systems that execute. And so that's really nice. So I love Dots. I've been working with Dots a while. But the things that I enjoy, besides, everything that, system developer focuses on, efficiency and cleanliness, getting something that works well and elegantly but quickly. I mean, those are really what I enjoy. But it's mostly because you are back end, it's problem solving. You really gotta solve problems for many things. You know, micro optimizations, right, or small optimizations, outweigh, right, your general design for a system, right? You'll always get better performance designing something well over designing something and then greasing all the wheels, so they run fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I enjoy. I enjoy the workflow, the design. As some of the features that I like to mention, so obviously I recently finished Shields. Yeah, Shields and projectiles and things like that. But I like the fluff. I also like the fluff of kind of the system. So just the sweet things that you put into the systems that are features that who knows if someone will use, but are exposed. A great example of this is targeting functions. So for targeting, obviously targeting the system itself only decides what you should target. It does not control anything else. That is the system. It's isolated. And so what evaluates what you should probably target is largely based on a lot of things. But the coolest thing is being able to create your own function that evaluates these targets. Yeah, different things like that that are just put in, such that if a modder or something happens later down the line and someone wants to make something really unique, I have a robust system enough or something in place that someone can do something truly interesting. So
It's always really useful. I mean, when you have the tools available right off the bat for what you need to do. I've done some working in Unity, and I've come into frustrations with the code base just not having features that it should have, and so it's always really good to think ahead like that. Even if it's something really obscure, you're like, nobody's ever going to need this. It's like, if that moment comes, you've saved their butt. Like, you've already,
yeah.
It's already covered.
Mm-hmm.
What got you to systems development, programming, and game development in general?
So my kind of journey through development has really been game focused as much as I call myself a systems designer. I think systems designer is, in many fields across software, all these things, right? But I think in more of an engine perspective. So when I first started Unity, I was following along tutorials, on a MOBA because I was really interested in MOBAs at the time. But RTS background, so I'm thinking MOBA with lots of units. And so you quickly figure out when you're new to things that getting performance, or at least trying to get performance where you think, oh, I can do this, is very difficult if you don't have, a background of, maybe college or these things. I mean, this was a really pretty long time ago. And so, things like trying to get distances between things and using physics casting instead of just doing the distance proof. Like just stupid things that like now you'd be like, that's so simple. So I mean, there's obviously the math component, especially when you're starting off early and you don't. I mean, then I wasn't studying geometry or anything like that. I was probably in algebra. But trying to push this performance using these physics things and different things like that, I got more obsessed with more things I could do, like more units, more collision tension, over the actual mechanics of the game. And so that obviously just spiraled out of control. And, I ended up like with different prototypes of like, I got really into like Total War things. So obviously really pushing, systems and things. And then ECS came out. This is a quick story. And I worked with that. I switched things, worked with that, tried to really push. And because was really bare bones at the time, I really had to focus on engine developing over functionality and different things like that. Just to like select a unit, you have to have some sort of ray casting system, right? To detect units, things like that. And so you find yourself in this whole of building an engine that complements the game over a game that, complements an engine, I guess. So
You don't
that's
feel
where I
like as
got
limited by
interested.
the engine that you're working with if you're building it.
Yeah, especially with, I mean, I love the engine part of it because, I mean, really, you look at all the modern engines and, really they are just system based. Even Unity, its back end is job related. So with different systems and things like that. Yeah, I really got obsessed. And, yeah, that's where my background.
Yeah, it's a good skills to have, and it's really nice
Mhm.
to use and all that stuff. How did you come across the Sanctuary project?
So this is actually a funny story because I think I originally joined the Discord because of Dots development and they were using Dots and CS. And, yeah, and then I later, you had announcements of like job positions, like Dots developer closed, and I was like, that was such a good opportunity. Um, and then I was looking for a job about a couple months ago, and ironically on the Discord remote game jobs, there was a application posted on there that was Unity Dots development. It's like, oh, this is perfect for me. I had no idea it was Sanctuary at the time. It just happened that when I applied to it and realized it was Sanctuary game. So I was like, wow, how ironic is that? The thing I kind of followed for Dots development, happened to be an opening and I got in. So the stars aligned for that and, I'm happy to be up.
That's really cool. Sometimes things just work out in really weird ways like that. Yeah. So, moving on from Sanctuary, in general, what are some of your favorite games and inspirations in general?
So I'm a dreamer, which is an interesting thing to start off. I, sometimes think far too big, in certain things. And I think that's because my interests are pushing boundaries, right? Because I'm obsessed with optimization. And so in that obsession, I think I kind of formed pushing boundaries as not only like efficiency and like doing something really large scale, but also doing something completely new. Um, and so that's, I think, where my interest lies. So either pushing boundaries or something completely new. And so, um, probably the games I played the most, were Napoleon Total War, modded Napoleon Total War, the NTW3 mod, which takes a more realistic, more slower approach, more macro approach to the game, as well as expanding a lot more kind of units. And so that I think fueled kind of my interest in optimization. So I did a lot of prototypes with like a lot of things, but not to derail. So my inspirations are also largely Counter-Strike, I think. So as much as I have that RTS, I also have the competitive, like, kind of desire for skill-based kind of things, heavy skill-based. Um, but, yeah, so I guess my inspirations have been skill-based games, right? So RTS. So,
Yeah, it's always really useful and good because we want this game to be, mostly skill. We don't want it to just be
mhm.
a dice roll on whether or not you win. It's always really frustrating, especially with a game like an RTS where a match can take so long, or even like something like Battlefield where the matches just go on, and then it's like I don't feel like I'm contributing, you know. So it's really good that the game ends up being really skill based, and it's nice that everybody involved keeps that in mind as they're developing it. So as we wrap up here, do you have anything that you would like to tell the audience in general, or just anything else that you'd like to talk about?
I am building these systems for access, right? So they compartmentalize commands, between each other that can be intercepted by Lua or other things, and they can read them. For instance, the collision when two entities collide. That's a command that's just flat out on the in the physics system that Lua could communicate with if they want to interact. And this goes for most of all the systems I have implemented. They have kind of these command systems that either output or commands that Lua inputs and then interprets a simulation. Um, so addressing the modders, hopefully, um, I have those people in mind when I'm building the backend system engine. So you have control over, what information you want and how you can interpret it eventually on Lua.
Yeah, no, modding is really
Yeah.
important also, and it's always really good to keep that in mind. If that's all you'd like to say, this has been Max. This has been FoneE, and we are Sanctuary. Until next time, see y'all later.
We are Sanctuary.